I measure nights by the sound of melting ice. At the St. Aurelia Grand, the lounge lights dim to a low amber at 8:58, and the bartender, Rita, drops 3 cubes into a short glass and sets it at the end of the bar like a ritual. When the ice is still sharp, I'm at my first verse. When it's rounded, I'm halfway through the set. When the last shard dissolves into quiet, it's midnight, closing time. And I remind myself, again, that I still have a voice whether anyone's listening or not. My name is Naomi Ellis. I'm a black lounge singer who learned to sing in kitchens, and church basements, and city buses. And for the last 3 years, I've been singing to an almost empty room 5 nights a week. There are good nights, a conference crowd that claps on 2 and 4, a honeymoon couple who slow dance carefully like they're carrying something fragile between them, a table of older women who whisper, "That's the one my mother loved." And there are the other nights, the most nights, where it's me, Rita, and the hum of the refrigeration at the back of the bar. I used to resent the empty chairs. Now I sing to them the way you sing to someone in the dark you hope will answer. Because that's how my grandmother taught me. Grandma Viola had the kind of voice that could hush a room without asking. She sang jazz through the late 60s into the 70s across rooms that smelled like cigarette smoke and possibility. When I was a little girl, she'd tap a finger to my forehead and say, "You've got a cathedral in there. Don't leave. The door's locked just because nobody's inside yet." So I open the doors, 5 nights a week, to a congregation of chairs. Tonight, rain slicks the city into a watercolor. The lobby is all marble and echo, soft shoes and umbrella drips. The lounge is a cocoon of lamplight and wood and velvet, where I feel both seen and invisible at once. I set my small bag on the cabaret piano, tuck a curl behind my ear, and nod to Rita. She lifts the glass in my direction like a benediction, then places it at the end of the bar. The ice answers, "Begin." "Good evening," I say into the mic. "I'm Naomi." I start with "at last," not because I'm lazy, but because the room needs something it already trusts. I stretch it, take my time, tuck a small ache into the word mine. The last note hangs over the carpet, and the air feels different. Like the room remembered it had a heart. A couple wanders in, looks around, whispers, stays. A lone traveler in a weary suit claims the corner table near the window and closes, his eyes like he's been waiting all day to be quiet. The rain leans its head against the glass. Second song, "The Nearness of You," slow enough to tell the truth. Third, "Stardust," because my grandmother said you have to throw 1 star into every set to remind people they're made of the same thing. When the ice is rounded, I take a sip of hot lemon water, breathe, and decide to sing one I only sing when I need to feel brave. This one belonged to my grandmother, I tell the room. She used to sing it when the news was loud. It helped her hear her own heart. I sing "Strange Fruit," no theatrics, no ornaments. Each word like a step you take barefoot on a road that remembers. The lounge hum quiets. Even the bartender stops moving. The rain seems to hold its breath. When I'm done, I let the silence stay. You don't clap grief. You honor it by not looking away. The door opens. A man shakes the rain from a dark coat and stands for a moment in the threshold. He's white, late 50s maybe, silver hair that looks expensive without trying, posture that says he's carried. Weight you can't measure. He scans the room, bar, tables, me, then walks to the empty table directly in front of the stage. Hardly anyone ever chooses that table. He does without hesitation. Rita and I exchange a glance. I raise an eyebrow. "Front row?" She shrugs. "Bold one." I nod to him. He nods back. An exchange between strangers who recognize something unsaid. And I start the next tune, a small hymn my grandmother hummed while she cooked on Sundays. Mid-song, the man leans forward, elbows on the table, palms lightly pressed together, not praying, listening the way you hold a thread so you don't lose the needle. He stays to the end of the set. He stays through my break, sitting still with a drink he barely touches. When I return, I decide to sing 3 originals that have never been asked for, because nobody asks for a song they don't know exists. The first is a piano lullaby for city noise. The second is about the way grief comes in the mail, and the third is a pocket prayer for mornings when your courage is still asleep. When I close with Black Coffee, talk singing the first verse like a confession whispered to a lamp. The man's eyes shine with the kind of wet that refuses to fall. He doesn't come up. He doesn't rush. He waits at his table while I coil my cable and tuck my music into my bag. He stands only when I step off the little stage and meet him halfway. "Ms. Ellis," he says. His voice has radio in it. Warm, round, like it was. "Made to be heard. That's me," I say, surprised he knows my last name. I don't announce it. He offers a dry hand. Julian North. Even people who don't read liner notes know the name. Producer, arranger, midwife, to a dozen albums that taught me the difference between volume and presence. There are songs that came into the world because Julian listened first and then moved furniture around in a musician's house so the light fell just right. I learned how to phrase a line by wearing out the record he made with Eleanor Hart, tracked live, no edits, every breath a choice. You stayed, I say, and it comes out more intimate than I intend. I couldn't leave, he says quietly. I walked in on a song and remembered what rooms are for. Rita materializes with a towel for my hands because sweat is honest. She mouths, "You okay?" I nod, though my heart is breaking into small, well-crafted pieces. Julian gestures toward the side hall, where a red exit light makes everyone look like they haven't slept. "May we talk?" We stand in the narrow space between the lounge and the service corridor, the air smelling faintly of onions and elegance. Behind the door, dishes clink. Somewhere farther back, someone laughs in Spanish. "I'll be plain," he says. "I want to record you. Not a showcase, not a PR stunt. I want to document what you do to time and air." "You met me 30 minutes ago," I say. "I met you 3 songs ago," he says, and he means it like that. I cross my arms because pride is a jacket you wear when it's raining. I don't have money for studios. I have a studio, he says simply, and time, and a small reserve of grace I was saving for something that mattered. Why me? No flirt in the words, just a question I ask the world when it looks me in the eye. "Because I hear your grandmother," he says. And when I flinch, he adds, "Through you. You took an old door and walked us somewhere new." He hands me a thick card with an address in Soho and a hand-drawn bird in the corner. "If you come tomorrow at 11, we'll make tea, and if the room likes you, it'll tell you." I have a day job, I say. "Bring it," he says. "We'll work around it. I don't ask art to quit its life to make mine easier." Rita peeks around the corner, reads his face, reads mine, and grins like a conspirator. When he leaves, she leans her elbows on the bar and whispers, "Please tell me that was not a hallucination." "If it was," I say, "it had a very credible business card." I don't sleep. I do the things you do when you're trying not to be afraid of hope. Wash dishes that were already clean, roll pairs of socks like tiny promises, text my father, a picture of the card and then backspace, sit on the floor and listen to my grandmother's old reel-to-reel until the room smells like cinnamon and tape. At 10:58 the next morning, I stand outside a brick building with a discreet buzzer and a camera that blinks as if it's patient with me. I'm wearing my nice jeans, and the red blouse my best friend insists makes me look like I win arguments. I ring. The door clicks. Inside, wood, brick, light, cables coiled like friendly snakes, instruments resting against each other like good. Gossip. A woman with twists and engineer's hands meets me halfway. "Marion," she says. "I push buttons and tell producers when to hush." "Thank God," I say, and she smirks in the relaxed way of somebody who knows she's indispensable. Julian appears with 2 mugs. "Tea, coffee, courage." "Tea," I say. because my grandmother believed in it more than prayer some days. He leads me into a control room that feels both sacred and mischievous. The board glows like math. The monitors hum like friendly overcast. On a side cart sits a well-loved Revox tape machine with a fresh reel waiting like a blank page. "I brought something," I say, pulling a small box from my bag. Inside, the reel my grandmother left me, the night she said she found her voice and kept it. Julian holds it like it might purr. "May I?" "Yes," I say, my throat tight. "Please." Marion threads the tape with the gentleness of someone buttoning a newborn into a sweater. The room fills with a small hiss, and then my grandmother's voice. Lower than mine, smokier. The kind of voice that sets a glass on a bar and says, "I'll have the usual," and the bar nods because it already knows. We listen to a verse, a chorus, the off-mic laugh of a bass player, the clink of ice from a different century. I press my fist to my mouth and grin like an ache. Julian wipes his cheek with the heel of his hand. "Okay," he says softly. "Let's go to work." We begin with the old songs to see if they trust me. "My Funny Valentine," not swooned over but held. "Misty," one hair slower than a memory. Julian sits cross-legged on the floor like men do when they think chairs are dishonest, eyes closed, hands open, not conducting me, not coaching me, listening with his whole face. Marion's voice peeks through my headphones between takes with small adjustments that make me feel seen. A little closer to the mic on the low notes. "You're painting with a big brush. Try a smaller one here." "Again," Julian says when he means go deeper. "Hold," Marion says. When she hears a ghost in the room we can't see yet, we break for grilled cheese made on a pan that looks older than my career. He puts Dijon on the inside in a thin swipe like a secret, and slides the plate to me as if food were a contract we didn't have to sign in blood. We eat in the control room, feet tucked under us, laughing at the way studio time bends lunch into supper. "Who was your teacher?" I ask him. "A pianist named Eleanor Hart," he says, like you might say North Star. "She taught me to listen louder than I speak. When I forgot, she fired me and then hired me back when I apologized with work, not words." "Where is she? Now?" I ask, though I already know the answer people mean when they look like that. "Gone," he says, "but only technically. We cut 4 songs the first day, 2 the second, 3 on the third. One of them is mine, written on bus number M15 last winter, about a morning that sat on my chest and refused to move until I sang to it." Marion stands, eyes closed, during the second take, then presses talkback. "That. Don't touch a thing." Julian says nothing and looks at the floor like the truth is written in the grain. On night 3, I have to go back to the lounge, because the St. Aurelia doesn't pay me to be a dreamer. They pay me to be on stage in a black dress when guests pass. By on their way to late dinners and early divorces. Julian shows up, quiet in the front table, a man beside him who looks like a contract in a good suit. "Carlisle Reed," Julian introduces at the break, and the name makes the air in my mouth taste like money. Carlisle smiles like a photograph and says the right things about tone and market and timeless and potential. I sing worse the second set. It happens. Some nights your voice feels like it brought too much luggage and won't fit in the overhead bin. Midway through Lush Life, I rush a phrase and trip over my own feet. I finish, breathe, decide to fight, and start a sleepin' bee. I tell the small story my grandmother told before she sang it, about once upon a summertime, and the room remembers how to listen. By the last line, the smile returns to my throat. After, Carlisle leans forward. "You've got a record," he says. "We should talk terms." "Terms are how you learn who's in the room with you," Julian says pleasantly, and Carlisle's eyebrows do finance for a second. 2 mornings later, the studio door clicks open 20 minutes late, and Julian steps in looking folded. He doesn't apologize like a man who broke a rule. He apologizes like a man who tripped carrying something, heavy and some of it spilled. Everything okay? I ask. He nods and lies gently. An appointment. He asks for 5 minutes in the booth with the light off. Marion and I pretend to read while he breathes in the dark. When he comes back, his face is a room with the furniture moved against. The walls to make space for grief. Let's work, he says. Let's offend mediocrity. We record, black coffee. He asks me. First verse, talk it. Answer a question you've been asked too many times. I do. Halfway through, something in my chest clicks like a switch. At the end, none of us talk for a full minute. Later, on the sidewalk, he tells me without looking at me, "It's my son's birthday. He died 3 years ago. Some days are shaped like that." "I'm sorry," I say, and I mean it with muscle. He listened better than me, he says, and the words fall cleanly, like a confession someone's finally allowed to say out loud. He told me once a bridge was lying. He was right. I don't touch him. Some sorrow is a country with borders you respect. We'll make something honest, I say. We already are, he says. And for the first time, I believe we as something more than grammar. The label offer arrives like all label offers, on nice paper, with promises folded neatly into numbers. Advance, oxygen, options, a leash braided in silk, masters, theirs, creative control, mine until it isn't. Carlyle smiles through a pitch that lands like a velvet trap. Julian sits, breathing evenly, and when Carlyle finishes, he says, "We'll send a counter that protects the work." Carlyle maintains his grin as if it's salaried. "Of course," he says, and I feel a small shiver of safety having a man like Julian on my side who says no in a tone that sounds like care, not control. We open the St. Aurelia Lounge for a listening night, the room dressed like a promise. The hotel replaces the low lamps with candles, polishes the piano until it reflects the ceiling. Rita orders more ice and laughs. "I'm going to need a second glass for your superstition." Anatoly irons tablecloths like he's suturing. The invitation list is a mix. A few critics who still write like people read, some label faces who think their eyebrows are opinions, a handful of local musicians who know how to stand at the back and hear everything, and my father who comes with a tie he bought in 1996 and keeps for victory. I wear a long red dress with sleeves because I don't feel like being brave with my arms tonight, and my grandmother's small pearl studs that make everything I say sound like a sentence that intends to land. We start with "The Nearness of You," slower than comfort and sweeter than nostalgia. Evan, the pianist Marion loves and forced on the band because he treats major chords like forgiveness, lays it out like a road I want to walk barefoot. I sing the first bar of Black Coffee and watch two critics put down their pens, as if they need their hands free to feel something. I tell the story of the ice glass and watch faces soften when they realize I've been singing to a ritual longer than I've been singing to them. Near the end, I say, "There's one I don't always sing. I need to know a room can carry its weight." I don't name it. I just begin. Strange fruit. I sing it like a testimony, not an entertainment. When it's done, the silence deepens, then breaks like a sky that can't hold any more rain. I bow my head, not for applause, but for breath. Julian stands and walks out. My stomach drops so fast I have to hold the mic stand to avoid bending. Marion appears at the corner of the stage with a glass of water, the look of somebody who knows a storm when she sees one. I end with my song about mornings that sit on your chest until you sing them off. The room stands. My father cries quietly and pretends he needs to blow his nose. Backstage, Marion tells me, it's the day his son died. He thought he could outwork it. He can't. Nobody can. I find Julian outside where the alley meets the rain. He leans against the brick, eyes red and honest. "Tell me about him," I say. "Avery," he says, like the note the piano knows first. He had a better ear than me. He asked me once why I called pain content. He was right to ask. I didn't have an answer then. What would you say now? I ask. I'd say pain isn't a product. It's a door. We don't sell the door. We help people walk through. We stand without touching. In my pocket, my grandmother's ring warms against my palm like a small sun. I think of her reel to reel and the way the tape hiss sounds like summer. Inside, Carlyle does the rounds, his praise efficient and portable. Outside, Julian breathes. I breathe with him. The record comes out in June. We call it Last Light, because that's the color the songs turn in your throat when you sing them near closing time. People write to say it sounds like their kitchen at 9 p.m., like a letter they finally mailed, like church with the windows open. A woman from Atlanta sends me a photo of her mother's hands next to a turntable. A man from Oakland writes, "My grandmother says thank you for singing the melody she forgot. I cry more than I admit. I learned to drink water and lie down." The tour is modest and honest. Small theaters, old clubs that still hold smoke in the beams, a church in Cleveland where the pews groan at the right places. Rita texts me nightly to ask what the ice glass looks like in other cities. I send her pictures of tumblers and candle jars and a pint glass in Des Moines that somehow feels like home. There are odd efforts at theft. A festival moves my set because the golden hour photographs better for people who don't look like me. We move it back because Marion can turn words into architecture. A radio programmer asks on air if jazz is still relevant, and I say, yes, it's breathing right now, and the silence that follows is my favorite review. In Atlanta, an older woman in a blue dress waits until the signing line thins to nothing, then presses my hands and whispers, "My mother never got a room to listen like this. Tonight I heard her." I nod because that's the whole point. In August, we return to the St. Aurelia for a private show. Industry and neighbors mingling like dogs at a park. The room feels both newborn and ancient. The piano has been tuned within an inch of confession. Rita wears lipstick like a signature, and Anatoly has learned to tie a bow tie shaped like confidence. Before sound check, Julian gives me a flat package tied with string. Inside, a black and white photo of him at 25, hair like an apology still possible, standing beside Eleanor Hart at a piano. On the back, in neat hand, "Sing to someone. J." "Thank you," I say, because sometimes the right words are the small ones we don't overcook. We play, and the room blooms. After the last note, Julian steps to the mic. He is not a man who likes microphones unless they're pointed at someone else. He raises a hand, and the room quiets because he built rooms like this for years, and rooms remember. "Art is a ledger," he says. Not of money, though there are bills to pay, but of care. When I was young, a black woman pianist named Eleanor saved me from being the worst kind of producer. Loud. She asked for nothing in return. When I was older, a black singer named Naomi reminded me that listening is not passive. It's a vow. Tonight, in honor of Viola, Naomi's grandmother, we're creating a fund, the Viola Ellis Listening Fund, to pay for studio time, engineers, musicians, and days off, so artists, especially black women, can make work without apologizing for the cost of breathing. The room stands as one. Rita cries into a bar towel. Anatoly blows his nose with theater. I look at Julian and understand a thing about debt. The kind that isn't ugly, the kind that builds houses instead of bars. After, outside in the alley where the air always smells like onions and destiny, Julian tells me the quiet piece. "I saw your grandmother," he says. "In a photo?" I ask. "In a story," he says. I was 25 and wrong about most things. Eleanor was hired to play a record I was butchering. Your grandmother came to sit in. Someone had called her last minute. We cut a track live. I pushed. She steadied. I learned more in 4 minutes than in 4 years. He looks at the brick like it might nod. She squeezed my shoulder after, said, "Listening is the bravest thing a man can do if he's been taught to speak first." Then she laughed and told me to stop wearing that cologne. I never forgot either. That night, when I get home, I put the photo of Eleanor and Julian beside my grandmother's reel-to-reel on my bookshelf altar. Candles, a seashell, a subway token, a dried sprig of rosemary that makes the air smell like roast chicken and Sunday promises. I stand there until the room goes soft and my bones feel like everything I am is one long note I've been holding since I was a kid in the kitchen, singing to a spoon. Months pass the way good months do, sturdy, grateful, busy with the right things. We make a live EP because the songs have learned new ways to breathe on stage. I write at a little table by my window, watching the street decide what kind of day it wants to have. Marion starts producing a gospel record for her aunts. Choir and calls to ask if I can add harmonies on 2 tracks. I say yes before she finishes the sentence. Evan gets engaged. Rita sends me a photo of a new barback and says, "He sets the ice glass wrong but has potential." On a Tuesday, my father calls to say he found another box of my grandmother's things in the attic. I walk the 5 blocks to his place and climb into the smell of lemon oil and old books and vinyl sleeves. The box is small, labeled V's notes in my grandmother's tidy hand. Inside, scraps of paper with recipes, a church program with a star by someone's name, a Polaroid of a young Viola in a dress that made someone fall in love, and a folded letter. It's addressed to J.N. The paper is thin with years, the ink slightly bled. "J.N., you're too young to be this loud. You'll lose your ears if you keep throwing them away. Keep this as proof you were not always right, and that's the good news. Let the singer be the center. If you do that, you'll get old and still be worth calling. And one day, a girl will remind you why we keep telling the truth, even when the room is empty." I sit on the floor, the letter warm in my hands, and laugh until I cry. I text Julian a photo. He doesn't respond right away. 30 minutes later, my phone rings. His voice is the sound of someone who found a map for a place he's already standing. "I remember that letter," he says. "I didn't deserve it. I kept it in a drawer and took it out on days I wanted to quit. Then it did its job," I say. "You're doing yours," he says. "Keep singing the room full." Travelers seeking a late drink. Just me, Rita, the hum of refrigeration, the rain practicing scales against the windows. I could ask to cut early. I don't. I take my place on the little stage and nod to no one. "Good evening," I say. "I'm Naomi." I start with "at last," not because someone asked, but because I need it tonight. I let the word "mine" linger like I'm holding the hand of someone I miss. Second song, "The Nearness of You," placed like a picture on a mantle. Third, a hymn I wrote for women who do the unglamorous courage. The door opens. A teenager in a hoodie, brown skin, sharp eyes, steps in, shakes water from his sleeves, sheepish in a way that makes me think he didn't plan to be brave tonight. He sits in the back, where I would sit if I wanted to be close to something without admitting it. I sing Black Coffee. I sing the bus song. I sing A Sleepin' Bee, and tell the small story to a room of 2. On the last note, the kid stands, awkward, and claps once, twice, more, like he's afraid the sound will break the spell. He approaches the stage with caution. "Ms. Ellis?" he asks. "That's me," I say. I'm Avery," he says, and the name lands like a chord I've heard before. "Julian's son. He adopted me last year." He blushes. "Sorry. He said I could come by if I ever wanted to. Listen." I sit on the edge of the stage so we're the same height. "I'm glad you did," I say. "How are you? Adhering truth you don't want?" He grins. "I'm in high school, that's the whole curriculum." We talk for 20 minutes about music that hurts good and songs that lie pretty. He tells me he writes beats on an app on his phone while riding the bus because the bus gives you stories whether you asked for them or not. I tell him my grandmother sang to empty rooms like she was saving lives because sometimes she was. Can I play you something? He asks, palms sweating, phone trembling like a small animal. Please, I say, and he does. It's honest and messy and smarter than it thinks. I hear where the bridge is lying, I tell him gently. He nods like, being corrected is a kindness when it comes with care. When he leaves, he says, Julian says hi. He said to tell you he's making chicken soup and crying, but in a good way. I laugh, then sing one more song to a room that is no longer empty. A year after the first night he walked in out of the rain, Julian and I stand at the back of the St. Aurelia Lounge during a student showcase for the Viola Ellis Listening Fund. The room is filled with nerves and triumph, with young fingers and older songs, with the smell of hairspray and hope. Marion is at the board, jaw set, arms relaxed, the commander of an army you can't see. A girl in a yellow dress sings an original that makes two critics stop trying to describe and start trying to feel. A boy with green hair plays body and soul, like he found a way to breathe underwater. A trio from Newark premieres a tune about why Sundays taste like nostalgia. The audience claps as if applause were medicine. Julian squeezes my hand once. His rings are cool, his palm is warm. He leans in and whispers, "The room is full." I nod. It was never really empty, I say. It was just waiting to be heard. He smiles, and for a second I see him the way he must have been at 25, scared and loud and capable of learning. He points toward the stage where a shy singer at the mic clears her throat and looks toward us like she needs permission. Raise my hand and wave her forward. "Sing," I whisper, though she can't hear me. The word goes anyway, the way certain words do. She starts. The room hushes. Somewhere my grandmother laughs softly and says, "That's it, baby. That's how you do it. You sing the same whether the room is empty or full because somebody you love is always listening." I rest my hand on the back of a chair, feel the wood worn smooth by strangers. I think of ice melting in a glass at the end of a bar, of rain holding its breath, of reel-to-reel hiss and small, brave letters in neat hands. I think of a white producer who learned how to listen, a black singer who refused to stop, and the way a room becomes a home when you decide to tell the truth inside it. The note she holds at the end is clean and simple. It doesn't ask for more time than it needs. It lands, and the room exhales as one. We clap. We stand. We keep standing. I look up at the ceiling, old beams, old paint, and whisper, "Thank you." The ceiling, the room, the city, the ghosts. My grandmother, they all answer back in the same language, "Keep going," and I do.